Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rangers Journal. As you know, I'm your host, Scotty Mac631, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Matthew Karagich, who's going to speak us through the potential transfer of Yusuf Kabadayi to Rangers.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rangers Journal. I'm Scott Mackay, and I'm delighted to be joined by Bundesliga 2 expert Matthew Karagich. Matthew, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on.
I'm fantastic, mate. You know, the Euros is happening. There's lots of sort of rumors about who's potentially going where. There's new football kits coming out. I mean, it's definitely the most exciting time of any sort of football season is wondering who's going to go where and what teams will look like heading into the new season.
Aye, definitely. Well, there's conflicting reports on Yusuf Kabadayi's transfer to Rangers FC from Bayern Munich. I think there's reports in Scotland are saying that he's very close to a deal with Rangers, and there's reports in Turkey saying he's very close to joining former Rangers manager Giovanni Van Bronckhorst at Besiktas. Have you got any insight in the transfer? Do you know roughly what could be happening with it?
I mean, I can't say I know too much in the space of where he will end up. St. Pauli were another team that were interested in his services. You know, given they would have had a good look at him throughout the course of last season. In fact, one of his better performances for Schalke last season was scoring a brace against St. Pauli at the Feltons Arena. So it's hard to know. I mean, normally someone would pay Fabrizio a ton of money to say where he's going to end up, which is probably a good thing that no one's doing that. But yeah, it's sort of like it was a couple of weeks ago. It seems like Rangers are the front runner. Don't know if it'll be a loan or a purchase. Obviously has a lot of value at his age. You know, he's quite young. Had his first real taste of like professional football last season with Schalke. So yeah, it's still a question of what Bayern wants to do, really. Do they want to sell? Do they want to send him on loan? It's still to be discussed, and obviously, you know, they've got a lot of things they need to figure out themselves before deciding who's going to stay and who's going to go.
I think it's very much the kind of let's get deja vu's of Malik Tillman for me again, where Bayern loaned him out with an option to buy for Rangers. I don't know what happened, but Bayern ended up pulling it and getting more money for him. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. That's what happens. So tell us, what do you know about the player himself?
Well, he's an interesting player, someone who plays best in an attacking situation. Mm-hmm. So I think that the hard thing to really judge about his season the last season for him was sort of the turmoil within Schalke. And they started the season with Thomas Reis, who is a very defensive-minded manager, would often play five at the back. Doesn't really suit what he can do in terms of his abilities and what he likes to do individually. When Karel Gerrits came in, he likes to play a three at the back with the five midfield. Again, you know, doesn't really suit playing as a wing back. But when Gerrits switched to a more conventional 4-4-2, whether that was with a flat four or a diamond, he would typically play on the left-hand side. Yeah. Likes to cut in on his right. That's typically his modus operandi. In fact, one of the games I actually got to see live of him was he was playing on the right, and he was fantastic. He played with aggression, plays with a lot of heart, and regardless of whether he's going to play the full 90 or he comes on it as a cameo, the one thing that really stood out is his real desire for the contest. He really wants to get stuck in and make an impression. I think sometimes it can come across as someone who's trying a little bit too hard, trying to make more than perhaps the game's really asking for. But he does a lot of, he's an interesting option. And I guess given his age, he's still quite raw. He still has a lot of potential to develop into a better player. And I guess this is where, Bayern probably would have hoped he was going to have a better season, but given what had happened with Schalke over the last season, it's a little bit difficult to see whether he would fit into Bayern's plans going forward. But I suppose my feeling is that he would definitely benefit from a situation with a bit more stability Being that Schalke is such a massive club with massive expectations, and a club that really was well below what was expected of them in their return to Bundesliga 2. So I guess the one thing you can say from him throughout the campaign was that he played in a pretty difficult situation, played for a club that has extremely passionate fans, that they have expectations, and when expectations aren't met, there is obviously disappointment. There were moments where he really looked very comfortable in the system, but as you would expect from young players, he has his up and down moments, and that was quite evident. But definitely felt like Gerrard's trusted him a lot more as the season progressed compared to under Rice and in the early phases. But once they switched to that more 4-4-2 situation, it definitely seemed like there was more of a role for Kabadayi compared to systems that play three at the back, or I suppose have situations where he would have to play a bit more of a defensive-minded role, and that's not exactly what he's good at.
Yeah. He says he likes to get stuck in. Is the physical side of the game something that doesn't bother him in?
I mean, given Bundesliga 2 is quite a physical league, at times he's not a particularly tall fella. I mean, he's not packing a lot of weight, unlike myself. But he definitely struggled initially. Right. I think a lot of players come into to Bundesliga 2 just thinking it will, it's second division. You get a rude awakening, and initially I thought he really struggled to really adjust. But I guess when you have a coach that has a bit more of an attacking philosophy, a bit more dynamism compared to the previous coach, and someone who allows you to be more of yourself, then you can see he was able to, I wouldn't say flourish, but at least showed potential of being a pretty decent player.
What type of winger is he? Is he somebody very good? Has he got a good low centre of gravity? Does he like to beat a man? Is he a goal threat? Is he pacey? Like what type of player is he?
He's like an inverted winger, so he loves to. So if you like, he's not Iron Robin, but I think he's the one that always comes to mind for me. So, but just on the other side, loves to cut in on his right. He loves shooting. He loves to get the ball on goal, and it's something he did pretty well. And I think there were times you'd wish he was a little bit better at crossing. Sometimes I think on the eye test, like I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'm sure there'll be somebody like, "Hey man, he's pretty good at crossing." I've got the numbers in front of me. I think the eye test sometimes he tries to get a bit too much one-on-one action,
right?
And it's not some of his best work. But he's someone who has the pieces. He just needs the right place. For me, I think he needs the right atmosphere to really function. And you go to a situation where I think Bayern would have thought he was going to function really well, and 2 months into the season they're changing coach, and you're thinking, Jesus, this is bad. So I would say there's still a bit to learn about him,
right,
from a professional standpoint, given it's his first proper year of professional football. He's played the youth system at Bayern, so there's obviously you have to be pretty decent to go through the Bayern system, and obviously they saw something. There are a bunch of Bayern players that were sort of trundling around Bundesliga 2 last season, and one of them's playing in the Bundesliga next season, Paul Warner, and the other Hyunju Lee, who's joining Hanover. So there are definitely some, he's definitely got something. It's just, I think it's a bit untapped. So if he's in the right environment, I have no doubt he can be a pretty good player. It's just, I would say there are question marks. You're just a bit uncertain as to what he's going to be. And it's, I guess, and having consistency with his role, because that was the one thing he definitely didn't have. He played whenever they played in a front with a 4-4-2. He'd either play as a winger or he'd play up top. On occasions, he'd play alongside the striker, which would often be either Simon Terodde or even Keenan Karaman, for example. And he can kind of do that role, but he's not the one holding up the ball. He's the one trying to get in behind the defense, get those quick balls in and try and get him into good situations. So Yeah, I'm trying really hard not to talk down on him, but there's just a lot of question marks onto what kind of player he could be, and I think that's what should make people excited, is that there's a real potential there that he can be a good player. It's just that, Bundesliga 2 it can be a tough league to really make the most of it, and when you're playing in a team that it was really poor despite finishing 10th in the end. But for majority of the season, they were in sort of that bottom 6 or 7. It's hard to get a read on what it could be. And sometimes he'd be in and out of the squad, but with Gerrard's trying to find the right formula to get this team to work. So, yeah, I would say the circumstances of his loan were quite challenging, and it was quite a difficult place to be. And I think if he'd been at a club like an Elversberg or somewhere like Magdeburg, I think he might have been able to flourish a bit more, given that I think those teams had been better set up for his player profile. And I just don't think Schalke got the best out of him. And I think he would also potentially admit that there was probably a little bit more on the table. And look, the vote of confidence is that Schalke would have loved to have signed him. But they were priced out of it. And it became pretty clear that with their financial situation, they weren't going to be able to bring him back. And now he's obviously available for the right club, and we'll see who gets him.
I'm going to give you a typical Rangers Saturday 3 o'clock kick-off scenario. So Rangers are playing Kilmarnock at Ibrox. First 6 minutes, Kilmarnock break up the park, end up with the ball in the back of the net, 1-0 to Kilmarnock. Now, I've seen this for years at Rangers. Low block for the rest of the match from Kilmarnock. Anytime a Rangers wide man gets the ball, he's not only got one player to beat, he's got 2 players to beat. They're doubling up on him. How would Kabadayi react in a situation like that?
It's kind of an interesting one because we didn't see it happen often. I mean, Schalke in a lot of games would trail. That was something that happened. I would say, yeah, it's not one of those situations we saw a lot of, to be honest. So it's kind of difficult because there were certain teams you would think there are certain teams that would definitely do that against Schalke. Clubs like Wiesbaden, if Osnabrück got a lead, or Eintracht Braunschweig, for example, they would be on a low block from minute 1 and try and hit you on the break. So it's a bit tricky. I would say that with assistance, there would be a solution to find a way out for him. But yeah, it's just not one of those situations we saw a lot of. Throughout the campaign. So yeah, it's not that he couldn't do it. It's just that you don't know. I didn't see enough of it because, it's a great question, and I wish I could give you an awesome answer, to be honest. And we just didn't see enough of it from him, and for Schalke to be in a situation where, because they were much better at home. Put it this way, like their record at home was far more superior. On the road, they offered on most occasions not a lot. That's to put it really nicely. And when they would chase the game, they would often rely on sort of the wider like the fullbacks, guys like Thomas Ovuyan with an overlap, which, if he was playing on the left, that's what they would do. They'd get Ovuyan to sort of swing and overlap so you can even up those situations. But yeah, it's not something we saw enough of, really. I mean, if they were St. Pauli or heck, even Hamburg, we would have seen probably more of it. But because of sort of that lack of identity that Schalke had for a good chunk of the year, those kinds of situations didn't often arrive. And even in the game that I went to live, Nuremberg weren't exactly like sitting deep. They had to get a result as well. So, I guess that's a situation we'll have to find out, to be honest.
The only reason I'm asking, mate, is because this season in particular, if like Rangers played Motherwell at Ibrox and I think they were 2-0 down at some point, and the players tend to go in themselves. They lose all confidence. When you get to 75th minute, you're 2-0 down to a team you should be beating. There's expectation on you. The players tend to withdraw instead of stand up and kind of accept the challenge. And one of the things Rangers fans are wanting from this summer transfer window is a player that's going to come in and go, all right, okay, we're in a situation, so let's go and get ourselves out of it. Let's not pass the ball in like a kind of horseshoe style of play. But
I mean, he'll always have a crack. I mean, that's certainly the way. I mean, he'll have a go, and even if it doesn't work, he'll still keep having a crack. I mean, it's just the way they get. I like honestly, I've not got the knowledge on Rangers, so I couldn't tell you how they would use him. So, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on all leagues because that's just not true. So, how they use him would be really interesting, and then you can sort of, I suppose, if that situation comes, we'll find out if he can do that at Rangers. But yeah, at Schalke, definitely that was probably one of the things that, like, sometimes he might not technically be great or as strong as other players in the league, but he's definitely felt like his work rate was pretty solid, and there was a willingness to, regardless of where the game was at least impose something, and not just lie down and accept it. So I think that was something that I kind of noticed watching him. But yeah, I guess when you sort of chopped around and put in different spots, and your game time is pretty mixed, whether you're playing 90 minutes or 10 minutes. I think you have to bring in a level of intensity and desire. And there were times definitely where you felt where someone needed to lift, to change the energy and sort of the aura. And the Feltons Arena is a pretty imposing place. I can imagine Ibrox is much the same. So I can imagine for a lot of teams getting a result against Rangers at the Ibrox it's like, I don't know, winning the Scottish Cup or something. I guess it would be like winning a cup final. So, and that's similar with Schalke. When Elversberg beat them, you thought they won the Pokal. So, but yeah, like it'll be interesting. It's just that, he's such a young player, and to be thrust into that situation, you get to learn a bit about a player, and I think there's still a lot more we can learn from him, and it will be interesting to see if it is Rangers, if it's Besiktas, St. Pauli, someone else. But I can't imagine. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I know I'm rambling, and I'm trying to find the right words to sort of explain what he's done throughout the season. But Schalke were just such a mess. There wasn't a lot of bright spots throughout the season. I think them surviving the way they did and finishing mid-table was kind of a miracle, given the way they played throughout the season.
I think given the circumstances he was playing under at Schalke, I think it's kind of going to build his character up more than anything, isn't it? It's a massive learning curve for him. I think what he'll get at Rangers is he'll get simple instructions. He'll get a very clear defined role. He'll get expectations. He'll get praise. He'll get criticism. I think it maybe sounds like, especially when I'm coming from the point of he'll get like clear instructions from Philippe Clement. It's something our previous manager Michael Beale was doing with the players, was overcomplicating things on the park for him. There didn't seem to be an identity or a style of player in that. Whereas when Philippe Clement came in, he stripped everything back, made it very basic. And Rangers went on a winning run. So I think Kabadayi could potentially benefit for that.
Yeah, and look, that was something that Karel Gerrits had to do as well. I mean, he wanted to play, he had great success at Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium. They were, they had a good run in the Europa League the year and they almost won the league while he was there. And he wants to play 3-5-2. That was the system that worked for him. But with this group of players, he couldn't do that. And he had to really strip he had to strip back what he wanted to do, but B, he had to adapt to the list that he had with him. And I know he didn't really want to play 4-4-2. I know for a fact. It was well known that he didn't want that system, but that was you looked at how they were accumulating their results, and you looked at the shape and the personnel, and that was the one that was working for them. So, yeah, I think if you just tell him, like, from what I can recall, if you just tell him, hey, man, just press, you can press the ball, does that pretty solidly. Cannot speak. It's like 8:30 here, so we're losing time. But he's solid in the pressing game. He will play with intensity, and you can sense he wants to make the most of all of his opportunities. Yes. So if that's what you're looking for in a player, I think you'll find he will give you that as the base, and then how he develops from then on. If they can improve the technical side and obviously make him more of a goal scoring threat than he was this season, then I think you could be pretty happy with that. So yeah, it's all up in the air, and I'm sure we'll find out soon enough where he lands. And hopefully, regardless of where he lands, obviously for this podcast's sake, it'll be Rangers. Hopefully he goes well. That's the main thing.
Magic. Just one more question about Bundesliga 2. Obviously, the guy that runs the Rangers Journal account on Twitter, Kai Watson, he loves finding a gem, and he loves putting a profile up on them for SofaScore and all kind of stat based. Is there anybody else in Bundesliga 2 you think that is one to watch?
Oh, this is tough. I mean, I would have said Can Özcan, but he's probably going to the Bundesliga with Eintracht Frankfurt, and he missed out on the Turkish national team, which was a darn shame because he picked Turkey as his allegiance because there was a alleged promise that he was going to be there at the Euro, and he didn't get picked.
Right.
It is tricky because there's so many to choose from, and so many performed really well. I look at guys like Yannick Rockhelt, for example, at Elversberg. Paul Varno, who I mentioned, who's gone to Heidenheim, is really interesting young player. And then you look at guys like Laszlo Benes at Hamburg, who had a sensational season and will probably be moving to greener pastures. And then you look at guys who, showed potential. Someone like a Jonas Urbig, who plays goalkeeper, and someone who, if you're buying investment property on Urbig Island, I think I'd have the biggest mansion. So I've been pretty high on him from his time at Jan Regensburg and Greuther Fürth, and now he's going to be at Cologne as the number one. So, yeah, has a lot of potential for me as a goalkeeper. And this is coming from someone who played very, very low-level goalkeeper, but was there. So, I really like Jonas Urbig as someone. But there's just, honestly, that how long do you have? I guess that's the thing, because there've been a lot of impressive young players that have come through over the last few years, and some of them are even in the German national team. A great example was Maxi Bayer, who 2 seasons ago was at Hanover, and after a fantastic season with Hoffenheim, he's playing at the Euro.
One last question I want to ask you is: Rangers fans have got a big affinity with Hamburg. When's Hamburg going to get promoted? seem to be doing Bundesliga 2 for years now.
So there's a funny sort of lineage. So the time that we started the Bundesliga 2 podcast was the first season they were in. This is only coincidental, but I just find it humorous. It's sad also, I guess. That was their first season in Bundesliga 2, and then the 6 seasons we did. I did the podcast in the hosting and production side of things, social media and all that. They remained in Bundesliga 2, and so this will be the first year we're not doing it, and maybe they'll gain promotion now. So, look, the funny thing is they finished no lower than 4th in the 6 seasons they've been there, and in any other league, especially a first division, that's gravy. You'd be very happy.
Yeah.
But look, the squandering of resources, this season hurt more than any, given that St. Pauli went up, Kiel, who are also in the north, they went up, and they were in a great position. They sacked Tim Walter 4 games after the winter break, which and replaced him with Stefan Baumgart, which left a lot to be desired. And now Walter's coaching at Hull City in the Championship. So, he's a good coach. I think people, may have misinterpreted my words when I was speaking to Hull people, but he's a good coach, but he's never gained promotion, and that's what they're after. So, we'll see. I think this season is a bit different. They've got a new sporting director in Stefan Kuntz. Baumgart's returning. They're expected to be a bit of change at Hamburg. I mean, keeping Robert Glatzel was a big win for them. There was expectation he was going to go elsewhere. Equal top scorer last season with 22 goals alongside Christos Stolis and Haris Tabakovic. So, yeah, I would say it is going to be interesting. You've got Cologne coming down from the Bundesliga. Schalke are still here. Hertha, Hanover are here. You've got newcomers in Prussian Munster who haven't been in the Zweite in Bundesliga 2 for almost 35 years. You've got Ulm who are coming in for the first time in more than 20, and you've got Dusseldorf returning after the heartbreak of the playoffs. So, look, it's going to be another tough season, and I don't, it'll be fascinating. It's going to be hard. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be hard for Hamburg. But yeah, I think maybe this time. I mean, I've predicted them 5 of the 6 years to go up, so they're probably due. But usually around April time, after the last international break, normally that's when they sort of capitulate. And this season was kind of no difference. And yeah, if they can get over the April hump and they're in the mix, maybe they'll this time next season. Maybe we're talking about Hamburg as a Bundesliga club again, because they definitely have a fantastic fan base. They, I was lucky to go there in April for their game against Kiel on a freezing cold Saturday night, and I mean the place and the atmosphere definitely absolutely worth making the trip to the Volkspark Stadion. It is definitely one of the better stadiums that I went to while I was over there. So, yeah, it was fantastic, and yeah, maybe we'll see them, but it's hard to know. It's one of those things, much like the Championship. It's you can have your pre-season favorites, but really you need to chuck a dart and hope that one of them will gain promotion.
Aye. Right, Matthew, well, thank you for coming on. Do you want to just tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on, we still calling it X now, or is it Twitter? X? Yeah, one of those 2 names. Just at my name, Matthew Karagich, and I tweet, post random stuff, mainly football related. We'll have some stuff coming out in the future for beIN. But yeah, so I'm just there and about, and yeah, this is terrible byline. There's a good thing I probably don't make radio. So yeah, so that's where you can find me. I do bits and pieces and send memes and stuff like that. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Magic, mate. Well, thank you again for coming on. It was very informative, the information you've gave us on Yusuf Kabadayi, and hopefully he ends up at Rangers, because it sounds as if he would relish the challenge rather than withdraw from it, which is what we're needing at Rangers just now. So, thank you, and hopefully we can have another chat again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Right, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Rangers Journal. As you all know, we are on Monday to Friday. We're on again tonight at 9 o'clock, where me and Dino will be there talking something today with Rangers. Cheers.